Okay, so some of you have asked for a tutorial for how to crochet, and I'm working on that, but there's a few things that I have to send you to the store for before you actually learn how to crochet. So I thought I'd get that out of the way now. So you could have a little time to do that, since it'll be who knows when I'm actually able to get the tutorial finished and up. So, first thing that I'm going to do, big distinction between knitting and crocheting. Knitting is done with 2 needles. They're almost always pretty damn long. They're pointy. These are the sort of things you could put someone's eye out with, and I would not recommend taking them on an airline. Crocheting, hooks are generally smaller. They are hooks, as you can see, a hook, and they're not usually as long. They do make things like this. They're Afghan needles made for making Afghans. They're, as you can see, they've got the hook, and they're long. Less likely to put an eye out with this, though. So, for the record, I'm teaching the thing with the hook, because I'm a happy hooker. Okay, the next thing you need to know is that they make hooks out of different types of things. They make plastic ones, and they make metal ones. They also make wood ones. I'd recommend for learning that you use a metal hook. They're a little heavier, but they're nice because they offer very little resistance when you're pulling on the yarn. When the yarn's sliding on it, there's very little resistance. It makes it very easy to do stitches. So that's what I'd recommend starting out with. Plastic, you're going to have a little more resistance there, and wood, you're going to have a lot more. It's handy if you're using something that's really silky and slippery, but to start out with, I would not recommend learning with that sort of yarn to begin with. So they make all sorts of different sizes. They're going to have little itty-bitty ones. You're really not going to be interested in something like this unless you want to make lace. And then they just gradually, they go up in size and thickness from the itty-bitty all the way up to the, oh my god, is that a dildo size? So yeah, there's a large variety of sizes. To start out with, you're probably going to only need 2 or 3. Just to give you a little variety, I'd recommend having maybe an F, G, and H sizes, just somewhere in the middle there. That gets me onto the subject of sizes for the needles, for the hooks. Sorry, I always call them needles. There's 2 different ways of sizing one. There's the letter system, which starts at the beginning of the alphabet and goes up with the earlier letters being smaller. So this is a G, this is a K, this is an N, and it goes up like that. You can also size them using millimeters. So this would be a 4 1/4. This is 5 1/2 millimeters, and then you get up to, this is 9 millimeters. That's going around. So if you're not sure what size needle to use, check the label on your yarn. Most yarn, when you buy it, it's going to come bundled like this, and somewhere on that label is going to be what size hook you want to use. I'd recommend sticking to the recommended size when you're just starting out, but as you get more experienced, you'll have your own preference about sizing. I usually like to use a size or 2 smaller because I prefer my stitches to be small and neat. And the larger the hook you use, the more spacing you're going to have in your stitches. Now when you're getting your yarn for this, I'd recommend buying the Red Heart Super Saver. It's generally really big. This is some of the Red Heart Super Saver that I've already used quite a bit of, and you can see how much is still left. It's very cheap too, and since there is so much of it, if you mess up and you have to totally scrap what you've done, you don't have to feel too worried about running out. So that's really good. If you're using this, then the recommended size would be an I, or 5.5 millimeter. So that's something to think about. I'd also, if you've never crocheted before, ever, I'd recommend starting out with a light color, maybe something like this beige or this sort of goldenrod colored. The lighter the color, the easier it is to see your stitches unless you're using white. Pure white is kind of hard to see. I'd recommend staying away from this sort of two-toned or anything with an ombre or a dark color, just because that's going to be harder to use. Don't use anything with any extra doodads or ribbons or baubles. That's just going to make it harder for you to learn. If you want to get started before I do a tutorial, or if my voice is just annoying you and you want to learn some other way, I do recommend this book here, Teach Yourself Visually. This is the best book that I've ever found for learning crocheting. It takes you all the way from the very beginning about what you need, how to hold the hook, how to pick your yarn, what it's called, all the different stitches. It's just a really good book, and I'm constantly referring to it because I can't remember everything. So I definitely recommend doing that. Now, if you're interested in learning to crochet so that you could make amigurumi, I'd recommend definitely buying 2 or 3 hooks, because for amigurumi, you're going to want to use a hook that's at least a size or 2 smaller than what is recommended, so that your stuffing doesn't fall out of your whatever you're making. And just another note, when you're buying your yarn, make sure you check and read the label and see what it's made out of, and make sure that you're not going to be allergic to it. I know I can't use anything with wool, so I always have to check the label and make sure it's not made out of wool, because otherwise it's a waste of yarn, because I'm not going to be able to handle it. So, there's your homework. Get a needle and get some yarn. You can find that Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Joann's, I don't know, Hancock, any sort of a local sewing store. And if you need help, just hit up my Ask box, or you can always ask the store staff. I'm not sure about the larger sort of corporate retail stores, but definitely the smaller locally owned stores, those people working there tend to be quite knowledgeable about what they're selling, and they could probably help you out while you're there so that you don't have to waste the trip. So, go and get that stuff, and I will see you eventually for a tutorial.